It's the 4th of January, and somewhere in your house there's a yoga mat still in its wrapping. The gym membership went through on the 2nd. You meant it. You really did. On New Year's Eve, you felt something close to certainty. This year would be different. This time you wanted it badly enough. And for 3 days, you were magnificent. You drank water. You went to bed early. You felt the clean, righteous burn of a person becoming someone better. Then a Tuesday happened. A bad meeting, a missed train, a child up at 2 in the morning. By 8 that evening, you were on the sofa with a bowl of something beige, and the yoga mat watched you from across the room like a reproach. You didn't lack willpower that night. You ran out of it. That distinction is the whole game. And almost nobody is taught it. We're sold a story. By motivational speakers, by half the self-help shelf, by our own guilty conscience. Change, they say, is a matter of wanting it more. Find your why, summon your discipline, push through. It's a seductive story because it flatters us. It says the power was inside you all along. But it's also, quietly, a cruelty. Because when willpower fails, and it will, that story leaves you with only one explanation. You weren't strong enough. You didn't want it enough. The problem was you. I want to take that apart. Carefully, completely. Not with a pep talk, but with mechanism. Because once you understand how behavior actually forms in the brain, you stop trying to outmuscle the system, and you start designing one that does the work for you. Let's name the myth precisely, because half its power is that it hides in plain sight. The myth is this: lasting change is primarily an act of will. That if you just decide hard enough and reapply that decision often enough, the new behavior will eventually stick. It feels true because occasionally it works. You white-knuckle your way through a difficult week and feel vindicated. But notice what you've actually proven. Not that willpower builds habits, but that willpower can override behavior for a while. Those are not the same thing. One is a sprint, the other is architecture. And the myth fails for a structural reason, not a moral one. Willpower, the conscious, effortful overriding of an impulse, is expensive. It runs on attention, and attention is the scarcest resource you own. Every decision, every temptation resisted, every email composed with a screaming toddler on your hip draws from the same shallow well. By the time evening comes, the well is low. This is why your worst decisions cluster at night, why the diet survives breakfast and dies at 9, why saints at the office become tyrants at home. Now, I have to be honest with you here. For years, psychologists called this ego depletion, the idea that willpower is a literal, depletable fuel, like a muscle that tires. It's an elegant model, and it feels exactly right. But the science has got messier. Large replication efforts have struggled to reproduce the original results cleanly, and researchers now argue about whether depletion is a fixed biological limit, a shift in motivation, or partly a belief that becomes self-fulfilling. The honest position today is this: the phenomenon is real. Willpower clearly degrades under load, but the tidy fuel tank explanation is contested. You don't need the debate settled to act on it, though. The practical truth survives intact. Relying on conscious willpower as your main engine of change is a bet against your own neurology. Whatever the precise mechanism, effortful self-control is unreliable, finite, and worst exactly when you need it most. Building a life on it is like building a house on a tide. So what do people who change for good do instead? They stop relying on the part of the brain that gets tired. And here's the good news: it's better than the myth ever promised. Your brain comes equipped with a system built precisely to make behavior effortless and automatic. It's called habit, and it runs almost entirely without conscious will. Deep in the brain sit the basal ganglia, ancient structures that handle pattern, repetition, and automatic action. When you first learn to drive, the whole conscious apparatus is engaged. Mirror, signal, clutch, gear, all of it deliberate, all of it exhausting. Repeat it enough, and something remarkable happens. The behavior migrates. It moves out of the effortful, attention-hungry regions and into the basal ganglia, where it runs as a single, smooth, automatic routine. You arrive home with no memory of the drive? That's not absent-mindedness. That's a habit, doing exactly what habits are for, freeing your conscious mind for everything else. The shape of a habit is worth memorizing. Cue, then routine, then reward. The cue is the trigger, a time, a place, a feeling, the people around you. It tells the brain which program to run. The routine is the behavior itself, and the reward is the payoff, the hit of relief or pleasure that tells the brain that was worth doing. Remember this. Run that loop enough times, and the brain chains it together. And here's the piece most people miss. Between the cue and the routine, with repetition, a fourth element emerges: craving. The cue alone begins to produce a pull toward the reward before you've done anything at all. The phone buzzes, and you feel the itch before you've decided to look. That craving is the engine of the whole loop. It's what makes a habit feel less like a choice and more like a current. Which brings me to dopamine, the most misunderstood molecule in popular psychology. You've been told it's the pleasure chemical. It isn't, not in the way you think. Dopamine is far more interesting than pleasure. It's a chemical of anticipation. In the lab, when a reward arrives unexpectedly, dopamine spikes. But repeat the cue and reward pairing, and something shifts. The dopamine stops firing at the reward and starts firing at the cue. The moment that predicts the reward is coming. The molecule doesn't say, "This feels good." It says, "Something good is about to happen. Go and get it." It's the lean, the wanting, the pull, not the satisfaction, the pursuit of it. Sit with that, because it explains almost everything. The reason you reach for the phone, the biscuit, the cigarette, the scroll, it isn't that they're so wonderful when you get them. Half the time they aren't. It's that the cue has been wired to a surge of anticipation, and that surge is a craving you'll act to relieve. The wanting and the liking have come apart. You can crave something you no longer even enjoy. Most stubborn bad habits live precisely in that gap. And this is why willpower loses. Willpower is a conscious, after-the-fact intervention. The craving fires first, fast, and below the level of thought. By the time your rational mind shows up to argue, the basal ganglia have already cocked the trigger. You're not having a debate. You're trying to talk a moving train out of being a train. So we stop arguing with the train. We change the track. Here's the reframe that changes everything, and it comes from James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals are about the result you want. Systems are about the process that, run repeatedly, produces it. Two people set the identical goal. One achieves it, one doesn't. What differed wasn't the goal. It was the system, the daily architecture of cues and behaviors that either made the right action automatic or left it dependent on a fresh act of will every single day. So let me give you the tools that turn this into action. They're simple, which is exactly why they work. Simple things survive contact with a bad Tuesday. First, if, then planning. Don't form a vague intention like, "I'll exercise more." Form a specific plan that pre-decides the when and where. If it is 7 in the morning on a weekday, Then I will walk for 20 minutes before coffee. You're handing the brain a ready-made cue. The vague intention asks willpower to show up every day. The if-then plan asks it to show up once, when you write the plan. Second, habit stacking. Bolt the new habit onto one you never miss. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write one sentence. You're borrowing a trigger that already fires like clockwork. Third, the 2-minute rule. Most habits fail because we make them too big. So shrink it, absurdly. Read 30 pages becomes read 1 page. Do a workout becomes put on my trainers. It looks pathetic. That's the genius. You're not trying to get fit in one go. You're casting a vote, making the behavior so small that resistance has nothing to push against. Fourth, make the reward immediate. The brain learns from rewards, and it wants them now. Tick it off a visible tracker. Feel the small, clean hit of a chain unbroken. The reward isn't a bribe, it's the teaching mechanism. And there's one more lever, stronger than all of them: environment. If willpower is the expensive engine, environment is the free one. We badly overrate our character and underrate our circumstances. The person who has such discipline with food very often just has a kitchen with no biscuits in it. Make good habits low friction, bad habits high friction, and you barely have to decide anything. The myth says, be strong enough to resist the biscuit on the counter. The system says, why is there a biscuit on the counter? But the deepest lever of all is identity. There's a quiet, decisive difference between I'm trying to give up smoking and no thanks, I'm not a smoker. The first is a person fighting who they believe they are. The second is a person simply stating a fact. Every repetition that aligns with an identity is a small vote for the person you're becoming, and behavior flows downhill from identity. That, if I'm honest, is the lesson I learned earliest and have never stopped learning. As a small boy, I had a tube torn through the soft palate at the back of my throat, and the surgeons weren't sure I'd ever speak properly again. What rebuilt my voice wasn't a single heroic act of will. It was my grandmother, every day sitting with me through the same patient, unglamorous exercises, the same small repeated actions, the same quiet votes, until the boy who couldn't speak became, slowly and then permanently, someone who could. I didn't decide my way out. I was built out, one repetition at a time. So don't close this and think about it. Thinking about it is where habits go to die. Design one now. Pick the identity, the kind of person you want to become. Pick the 2-minute version, stack it onto something you already do, edit the friction, and give yourself an immediate reward. That's a system, not a wish, not a resolution. An actual piece of behavioral architecture that runs whether you feel like it or not. Willpower was never going to carry you. It was never meant to. Build the system and let it do the lifting. If this landed, join the rebuild. My newsletter, where I take one idea like this and make it usable, one practical email at a time. The link's in the show notes. This episode was narrated by an AI clone of my own voice, trained on this show.